Have you ever wondered how a family-run company can become an absolute titan in its home market? We're not talking about global expansion or raising a ton of venture capital. Nope. We're talking about a company that built an empire by making itself absolutely essential to its own country. So today, we're diving into the Morozproduct playbook.
All right, let's get into it. We're going to unpack the story of a Belarusian company called Morozprodukt, and we're basing this on a lecture from its CEO, Ivan. It's this incredible story of how a family business grew to become, a truly indispensable part of the entire national food supply.
To really get a sense of their scale, let's just start with a couple of numbers. Morozproduct controls about 50%. That's half of the entire frozen goods market in Belarus. Think about that. Every second frozen product you see in a store there has passed through their company. That's just a crazy level of market control.
But it gets even wilder. For some specific products, their dominance is basically total. Take chebureki, which is this popular fried turnover. Morozprodukt has a 99% market share. They are the market. So how on earth did one company pull this off?
Well, the secret isn't just one single killer brand. It's actually this brilliant two-part strategy that targets completely different audiences with laser precision. They're playing on the past while betting big on the future.
And right here, this is their genius move. On one side, you've got 28 Kopecks. It's speaking directly to parents and grandparents with this pure Soviet-era nostalgia. It's not just ice cream, it's basically a time machine back to their childhood. But then on the other side, they're capturing the future with Frutidza. And this is not your parents' ice cream. It's built for a new generation with flavors for hitting the gym or pulling an all-nighter for exams.
And this chart just perfectly shows where they're placing their bets. Even though 28 Kopecks is their blockbuster, their main sales locomotive, it practically sells itself, so it only gets 10% of the ad spend. Meanwhile, they're pumping half of their entire $1 million marketing budget into Frutidza to win over the next generation of customers.
And get this, they're so confident in this generational playbook that they're planning to run it all over again. They had another super popular childhood brand called Gosha, with this famous parrot mascot. They've intentionally pulled it off the shelves, putting it into hibernation. And the plan? Relaunch it in a few years with the exact original packaging just as its first fans start having kids of their own. Talk about a massive, planned wave of nostalgia buying.
So here's the crucial point. This huge market share wasn't just built on clever marketing. It was really cemented during a national crisis. It's what turned the company from just a major player into an essential service.
So back in 2022, when huge European brands like Nestle just suddenly pulled out of the Belarusian market, it created this massive vacuum. So to stop empty shelves and, consumer panic, the government's own anti-monopoly regulator went to Morozprodukt and directly asked them to step in and fill that gap to make sure the country's food supply chain didn't break.
Now, you might think having a 50% market share is just a license to print money, right? But the CEO is surprisingly honest about it. He actually says he'd be way more profitable with just a 25% share because the overhead to service the entire country is just enormous. But he sees it as a duty. He explains that his private business is now fundamentally integrated into the policy of the state itself. So let's shift gears and look at the leader himself. Because to pull off a strategy like this, especially through a crisis, you need a very specific mindset. What kind of philosophy is driving all these decisions? What's his operating system? Well, the answer is this fascinating mix of extreme optimism and what you might call radical self-reliance. To steer a company through that kind of national crisis and to take on that much responsibility, you need a really powerful internal philosophy. And it seems to boil down to two core principles he lives by. First thing, a complete reframing of anything negative. In his company, the word problem is basically banned. His top managers don't bring him problems, they bring him challenges. And why? Because a challenge is something you can rally the team around and solve together. A problem is just a dead end.
And the second thing is this radical embrace of change. He basically argues that happiness comes from accepting that everything is always changing and from not building expectations of other people. When you only rely on yourself, you can't really be let down. And that philosophy, that resilience, is absolutely key to navigating an uncertain market.
So if that's the mindset, what's the actual game plan for the future? It's this really cool mix of high-tech data and a super personal, high-touch family legacy.
Okay, on the tech side, they are going all in. I mean, can you imagine the complexity of managing 50% of a nation's frozen goods? They have 16 different internal software systems for everything from logistics to sales. So instead of trying to connect them all,
which sounds like a nightmare, right? They're building one single proprietary AI to act as a master brain, learning from all of them to give instant, big-picture analysis of the entire business.
But on the flip side, the soul of this company is just so deeply personal. One of their most famous products, an ice cream sandwich called Caprice, was literally invented by the CEO when he was just a little boy. He used to put a cookie on his ice cream. His dad, the company founder, saw it and turned it into a real product. And he named it Caprice or Caprice because his son was such a capricious kid. How great is that?
And that powerful, family-driven tradition is continuing right into the next generation. A brand new ice cream, this caramel-filled bar, was just named Eskimo. And the name came from a video of the CEO's own young daughter singing this famous cartoon song about getting 500 Eskimo ice creams. And you guessed it, they plan to weave her story right into the marketing, just like they did with his.
Which leaves you with this one final, provocative thought. In a world that's increasingly run by AI, data analytics, and geopolitical crises, maybe the most resilient, the most powerful, and the most enduring business strategies aren't found in spreadsheets at all, but in simple, authentic family stories.